I want to reiterate what was said before and thank Kennesaw State for hosting. I know Dr. Priestley's not here, but really appreciate you guys jumping up and hosting us at a last minute request here. And Mark, great job on your presentation. Always enjoy hearing you speak and your insight. My name is Karl Riddett. For those of you who don't know me, I work at InterWorks. I'm based here in the Atlanta area. I'm what's called a solutions lead, which means half my time is spent doing billable work for clients, and the other half is doing business development activities, maintaining a relationship with our great clients like yourself or our partners like Exasol, Snowflake, and Tableau. InterWorks, a real quick background, we were formed in 1996. We actually just celebrated our 23rd birthday on Friday, this past Friday. We started out as a technology consultancy around networking and infrastructure. That's where the name came from, internet and networks, put it together, you get InterWorks. We're based in Stillwater because that's where our founder Bayfar and his wife met at Oklahoma State, and they just planted roots there. You can see a list of our clients there. We've been Snowflake Partner of the Year the last 2 years. We've been Tableau Partner of the Year a number of years. We've worked with 70 of the Fortune 100. We are a people-focused consultancy. It's something we really pride ourselves on, doing our best work with our best people for our best clients. And we do the entire gamut of the entire data platform, infrastructure to analytics, strategy, enablement. I want you guys, you can take a picture of this if you want. So we're offering office hours. We're trying to do this about every month, and several of you here are taking advantage of this. This is a free 90-minute session with myself, or there's another consultant here in the Atlanta area. So if you want to sign up, we're actually going to have 2 sessions. So those of you who maybe try to get in our October, these are our September office hours, and we filled up, we're actually going to double the size this time around. So it'll be 4 more sessions. It's at WeWork Coda down by Georgia Tech. Is where we're going to have this. So November 7th will be the day. Get on and sign on that website. And I'll have this up one more time before we leave. Before we get into what I'm going to talk about Snowflake, I'll say there's 3 jaw-drop moments I've had in my career in this space in BI analytics. 6, 7 years ago, I was at Chick-fil-A, and my boss at the time, we were using OBIEE. He said, hey, Karl, there's some analysts in our business analysis group that are using a tool called Tableau. I want you to be the IT expert in Tableau. So I opened it up. It was version 7. I connected it to then a Redshift test database that we had, and Tableau didn't have a native Redshift connector at the time. So we used ODBC, and all of you know who know ODBC know that is not an optimal way generally to connect to anything. But nonetheless, I had to use ODBC. 380 million rows in this data set at the time. I connected to it, didn't write a single line of code, and within 30 seconds, I'm actually doing analysis. Credit sales, cash sales, drive-through, in-out, and I was literally jaw-dropped. This is a game-changing tool. And that was 6 or 7 years ago. Since then, Tableau has innovated a lot for the better for enterprise clients. It's now scalable and done a lot of great work. 5 years later, I'm sitting in Arby's, and we are struggling with SQL Server. And we see this a lot with clients. They have a great Tableau deployment, they've got great Tableau content, but the data's slow. It's just not performing. 2 billion rows. At the time, our direction was not to go cloud, we had to stay on-prem. So we called our friends at InterWorks, because I wasn't at InterWorks at the time. And they said, hey, we've got this partnership with a tool called Exasol. We would love for you guys to take a look at it. We'll spin it up for you and test it. 2 billion rows on this one table that we put in there. I built a very bad dashboard intentionally. I had a map, I had trend lines on all Arby's products, and I mean all Arby's products, and I'm filtering and querying it, and the dashboard does a real quick spin and result, spin and result. I mean, it's 2 billion rows, and it is popping. That was my second jaw drop moment. The third is when I was at Snowflake Bootcamp, and really got to see the underlyings of how Snowflake works. And afterwards, I came back and loaded a bunch of data for a client. I was putting together a POC for them, and I loaded close to 100 million rows in well under 20 seconds. And just could not believe the performance that I was getting out of that, and also understanding how it works. So we at InterWorks, we're partners with all 3 technologies we're talking about today, Tableau, Snowflake, and Exasol. We do recommend on-prem solution. We do recommend Exasol. We love that product. The cloud, their SaaS equivalent offering, I was talking to Dustin, he's here today from Exasol. Their cloud SaaS offering that's similar to what I'm going to talk about with Snowflake is based in Germany, but they do offer a private cloud solution that Snowflake does not offer. That you can host in AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. So that's a little bit different. So we actually have conversations with our clients on what's the right thing for you. So we're fans of both. But talk about Snowflake, because Mark talked about the benefits of Access. We're talking about Snowflake today. So Snowflake is the first data warehouse built exclusively and built specifically exclusively for the cloud. The founders came from Oracle. I don't think they were millennials because they came from Oracle, but they might be. Who knows? Just a guess. But the reason it's called Snowflake, and all of you DBAs out there, how many are DBAs or managed databases? Anybody? Excellent. Know that Snowflake schema is not optimal for a data warehouse. You generally are going to want to stick with a star schema. It's not, the name of the company Snowflake has nothing to do with Snowflake schema. It's the founders love the schema. That's at least what I was told at boot camp. Trevor, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So
that's the story I've heard.
Okay, very good. So we're consistent. So the architecture is very different. It's all the data, whether it's structured or semi-structured, it lives separately from the compute layer. And the compute layer will automatically scale out multiple nodes and scale up as you need it to a larger size. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Very cost effective. You could start out with nothing. In fact, today I'm going to spin up a data warehouse right here. We're going to load about 150 million rows in that data warehouse, and we're going to put Tableau on top of it. Which is why it's important for a Tableau user group meeting. You're like, why are we talking about all this databases here in a Tableau meeting? We should see Tableau. Well, because data is a key part of your Tableau deployment. If your data isn't performing or if it's garbage, there's no point in having a data visualization solution. It's pay as you go. So just like your electric bill at home, if you turn that AC all the way down to 62 in the middle of our super hot August and September that we had, you're going to pay a lot of money for it. If you turn it up to 78, you're going to pay a little bit less money for it. If you have the automatic light sensors that turn your office lights off or your home lights off as you leave a room, it will actually turn itself off. Snowflake will, as long as you tell it to. Generally, it's a setting you spin up, and I'll show you exactly how all that works. And then there's unlimited, as far as concurrency issues. Snowflake handles what you might experience in a tool like Redshift with concurrency. You can scale wide when you have lots of users, especially when you talk about a dashboard. This is the architecture, and this is, I think, a key point here with what differentiates Snowflake than a different data technology. They separate storage and compute. Historically, a database, that's all going to live in the same machine. You're going to have your disk and you're going to have your compute all in the same machine. But their storage, you can have your storage in any of the major cloud storage providers. And then compute is going to sit on top of that. You pay only for compute. You pay for storage, but they're just passing the storage cost onto you, whatever you're paying the cloud provider. If you prepay, it's, I think, $23 a terabyte per month. If you buy as you go, it's $40 a terabyte per month. So imagine if you have even 100 terabytes, it's a very affordable option for storage. Compute, you pay as you go, and it depends on your licensing model. That top layer you see up there is the service layer. That's not part of what you pay for, but it's where all the magic happens, and that's what we're going to interact with today. That's where the caching happens. Like all queries you run in Snowflake, 24 hours it's cached, the results. So if you run that same query within 24 hours, you get that result set back immediately because it's already cached. You're not paying for compute. So there's some really interesting things how they do that. And I want to point out something on the storage too, because this is really what I think is part of the secret sauce as well from what I've seen. Storage is stored in what they call micropartitions. And micropartitions are a specific way they do their columnar, their storage, and they are immutable. And what that means is they never change. So if I run an update, I'm actually not updating the data, I'm actually inserting new micropartitions, and I'm marking the other ones as old. So there's some neat things we're going to be able to do, like time travel and zero-copy cloning and data sharing that are possible at a very high speed because of that. So that's just something to think about. If you really want to get geeky about it, that's the part I think is differentiating. So what does cloud analytics look like? This is a typical data architecture. And in fact, when I was at my prior life, this was a lot of what we did. We've got data sources coming in. Could be Oracle, could be SAP, could be PeopleSoft. We had a lot of things mentioned like that today. Could be point of sale data. I'm very familiar with that data source. It could be third-party data we're getting from customer feedback or whatever. And then we might have web data, might have sensor data from our equipment. We generally do ETL separately from EDW. Why? Because it's expensive to do this. It takes a lot of lifting to do this. You take the data out of your source system, you transform it, and you load it in your EDW, because you don't want to overload your EDW, right? That's why we do it this way. We have Hadoop sitting outside of that for the same reason. But then once we spend the forever time getting EDW spun up, what do? We spin more data marts up because we don't want everybody hitting in EDW and slowing it down. And that's when we have other things sitting outside. So we have this massive, very complicated, many broken, possible places for it to break architecture. But this is generally, it's been seen as best in class for a long time. Well, with the cloud, and if you use a platform like Snowflake and you're completely in the cloud, that data lake now comes into your Snowflake environment. We don't necessarily have to do ETL. The database can perform fast enough where we can actually transform after we've loaded. We can extract, load it right into the database, and then transform it once it's been in there. We can have all the data marts sit inside of our environment because we can scale out and we can scale up. And what I mean by that is scale up. So Snowflake, you're paying only for compute, like I said. So a compute is running one node for 1 hour. That's what they call a credit. And the smallest Snowflake instance you can run is an extra small, which is one compute node. As they go up, it roughly doubles. So we have small, extra small, and then a small, and a medium. They call it t-shirt size. Large, extra large, 2XL, 3XL, 4XL, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Going up. So that's, if you really have a big complex data science job you want to run, maybe you want to run it on Excel. That's 16 machines running at once. The other thing you can do is you can scale wide. So maybe I have a small warehouse that's 2 nodes, but I know I'm going to get a lot of requests. So I might have a dashboard that's running. I might have 100 users I know that are going to use that dashboard. I would tell that small node to warehouse to repeat itself up to 10 times in the GUI, and we can actually go more than that if we really have to. It'll automatically spin up that many clusters, and it'll automatically shut them down as they're not being used. So all of that is possible with this architecture. Questions right there. I want to pause right there and questions. Those are all key concepts here as we talk about this cloud data warehouse.
Can you speak to the concept of like hot data and cold data?
Yeah, so
data lake versus EDW?
The question here that Nelson's saying, the concept of hot data versus cold data in a data lake. Historically, what we like to do is just dump data into a place where storage is cheap. It might be more expensive to get it out because the compute may take a while. We call that cold data. I don't need that data very often. It might be historical or transactional data. It might be data archived. That's what we call cold data. We put it somewhere where storage is cheap. Hot data is something I want instantly. It might be an executive report. It might be a dashboard that we're being used. And we would generally, in the past, have cold data sitting into a data lake. It may take a while to churn through it. It may take some finagling to get it to the shape it needs to get to. And warm data is ready for me right as I go. Well, with Snowflake, we can do all of that in one environment. I can dump, and I'll show you some of that. There'll be some JSON example I'll show you as well. So, oh man, I'm running out of time already. I might do the demo. All right, so I'm going to hop over the demo. Let us do that. Okay, this is the Snowflake environment. When you log in, and this is one of the advantages of Snowflake is there's really, almost no cost to start up. I sign up for an account, I've got an account, I'm ready to go. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to walk through this example with you guys. Some of you may have seen it if you've ever been to our Zero to Snowflake or a Data for Breakfast event. You've actually seen some of this demo before. Snowflake uses standard SQL, so you can see through this script, it's standard SQL. I'm going to just walk through each one of these steps. I'm going to first create a data warehouse. And I am on, I'm sorry, I lost my connection. Here's my iPhone. Sorry about that. I'm not having a good Wi-Fi here, so I'm going to use my cell phone Wi-Fi. Awesome. Which I can't do. I tried and it wouldn't work. That was something maybe with my laptop. There we go. There we go. Okay, let's try that again. Sorry about that. And if you don't mind, I'm going to put this. I've only got one bar. Okay. All right, so I've got my database ZTC demo Atlanta now. I'm going to refresh my list over here. You can see up here I've got databases, I've got shares, I've got warehouses. Databases is where actually all my objects live. Warehouses. Warehouse is not a data warehouse. A warehouse is a compute, logical compute group. You can see here that we've got, this is our InterWorks account, and you can see all of our warehouses right now are suspended. Nothing is running. So InterWorks is paying Snowflake $0. Sorry, Trevor, right now for anything we're doing. Trevor's my friend, so I can pick on him. So nothing here for InterWorks is running. Now that's going to change here in a minute. And notice how when I'm creating objects, it doesn't charge for compute. That's all in that services layer. I'm going to create a schema. There's a concept of a schema in here. I'm going to use that schema. And then I'm going to create a file format. So when I want to import and export data, I've got file formats for that. I'm going to create a CSV file format. That's going to help me import data here in a minute. I'm going to create a table. So I'm going to create several tables. Notice how I only have integers and strings. The beautiful thing of how Snowflake stores its data, I don't need to say varchar 2, varchar 255, varchar 256, whatever. I just do integers and strings or numbers and number data types, and Snowflake will automatically store only what it needs to store. So I'm going to create all of these objects. I've got dim airline, dim airport. What we're importing is flight data from 1992 to midway through 2016. All right, here's where I'm going to create my first warehouse. And notice up here I've got this warehouse, this demo warehouse, and it's white. It means it's not running. No warehouses are running. Okay? So we're paying 0 right now. I'm going to go into this, create this large warehouse. And notice how it turned on, because I created it and I did not tell it to suspend itself. It does have an auto suspend of 120 seconds. So that means after 2 minutes of idle, it's going to shut itself down. I'm going to go ahead and suspend that now. With compute with Snowflake, you pay for a minimum of 1 minute. So if you turn a warehouse on, they're going to charge you for a minute, and then they bill you by the second after that. I'm going to create a small warehouse. A small warehouse is 2 nodes. So a large warehouse is 8, a small warehouse is 2. I'm going to create that one. I'm going to use my small warehouse now. So I'm going to load data. This is from our public S3 bucket that we have this data. So I'm going to load some airline data. It's like I've parsed 1,610 rows. So I'm going to load airport data. Got 6,300 rows there. I'm going to load some airline carrier information. I'm going to load. Now here's where it's going to get interesting. I've got 148 million rows in this fact flights table. It's every flight in the United States from 1992 to midway through 2016.
And that's in a CSV or what is that?
That's in several CSV files sitting on our S3 bucket. This will probably take us about 90 seconds to go through, and I'm running this on a small warehouse. It's 2 compute nodes. But for 150 million rows, still pretty quick. The way Snowflake likes to get in data, they like you to parse the data out into buckets of files, so roughly 10 to 100 megabytes compressed is the optimal size. So what we did is we just created a bunch of files with identical number of rows and stuck them out here in our S3 bucket while this is running. This is still going. So we're about halfway through. The nice thing here, I can see what's going on while it's running. You can see here that it took 267 milliseconds to compile. It's still executing. Did not have, there's another command you would see in here. If actually it was the first command that the warehouse fired up, you would actually see that in here well, how long it took to spin up all the warehouse compute nodes. This should wrap up here shortly.
When it finishes loading, is it compressed and encrypted?
Yes. I was gonna pick on my Snowflake friends. I was gonna pick on my Snowflake friends for a second, but I decided to delay for dramatic applause instead. Yeah, everything is encrypted in Snowflake. Now, Snowflake does have different licensing models. So if you're in healthcare, they do have a healthcare certified encryption license level. They also have a virtual private Snowflake model, which is not like having your own server you control, it's different, but you do not have shared tenancy. Is that correct? You just
Right.
Yeah, and if you're interested in that, because everything in Snowflake shared tenancy, and so you get to that final highest model, we don't have any clients that are doing virtual private Snowflake. Everybody's either at that second highest level or the level below that for enterprises. So business critical and whatnot. And I said 90 seconds, and now I've set your expectations high, and now it's not, but it very well could be my computer here. But
Can you import larger?
there we go. You can. You can import as large as you want. What we have found, and I've had this experience, I'm very passionate about addiction data, and I don't know if you guys know the Arcos data set that the Washington Post released to the DA. We loaded all that data. I tried to load it all at once. And our data practice lead said, Carl, you should have parsed all those out. So it's much faster because it allows for parallel processing. There's parallel computing that it allows it to process that data a lot faster.
Parse that with typically?
Various files, various different technologies. That particular one, we actually had our data practice. They chopped that file up into what they needed. I wasn't involved. But I've done it myself using Alteryx. That's a tool that I enjoy using. All right, so you can see we've loaded all these files. There's 64 rows here. Each one has about, looks like it's about 2 million rows in each data file. You can see they're almost identical. So maybe I accidentally run something like this. Drop table fact flights. Uh-oh, it's gone. Now I can just undrop it. Successfully restored. Again, because it's storage and compute are separate, right? That's the other thing we're able to do here. I'm going to trunk this table. I'm going to use a large warehouse. So it took a little over 2.5 minutes on that last one. We're going to run this again. And this is 4 times the compute speed here using a large warehouse. And then I'm going to show you here. So you can see it actually said queued resuming warehouse partition. It took 408 milliseconds to spin up all 8 of those nodes to start doing this work. Once this is done, we're going to do some really interesting things here. I will show while this is running. I'm going to hop over here. Notice how I could drop and undrop the table just like that. I have another sample data set that I've worked on in InterWorks. It's a sample restaurant data. It has 2 billion rows in it. I want to show you something that also Snowflake allows you to do. So this is a little dimension table, day part. So if you work in the restaurant space, you're familiar with the concept of a day part. I got breakfast, lunch, afternoon, dinner, and late night. Maybe I accidentally ran a script that looks like this. Update day part, set day part, named it last night, without putting any key on it. Now I've got this last night as all my rows. Uh-oh. Which one's which? Maybe I don't remember my hour rules. Well, here's the cool thing. I can do time travel because the micro-partitions are immutable. And you can set time travel, depending on your license level of Snowflake, from 1 day all the way up to 90 days on any object. So, okay, so this was working before, now it's not.
That's always how it works.
Let's go back to this. I'll show you guys that example in a second. All right, so I loaded this in 47 seconds this time. Remember, it was 2.5 minutes before. It's now 47 seconds. So we saw the large warehouse execute a lot faster. All right, I'm going to count my airlines here. Count my airports. And let's look at how many flights we have. So I'm doing a join to my airports. So I have destination and origination airports. I've got all my flights, and I've got 94 million flights since 2001. As I put a year filter in here. What airline do you guys think has the most flights in 2016?
Southwest.
Southwest? What else? Southwest. All right, what is the #1 airport combination? So is it, for example, Atlanta to Orlando? That would be an airport combination. What's the #1 airport combination in this whole data set, you think?
It's gotta be
Anybody else? We got Atlanta, Philly, Atlanta, New York.
Atlanta, Washington.
What's that?
Atlanta,
Atlanta, Miami.
I want to say Atlanta now.
San Francisco, LAX. See, every time I get an East Coast crowd, everybody thinks it's Atlanta, everybody thinks it's Chicago. It's San Francisco to LAX. So I'm going to create a view here with all of that data in there. I'm also going to show you quickly here, because I know we're running low on time. I don't want to go too far, but I'm going to clone. I can clone this database instantly. I'm not copying anything. So I just copied that whole clone. So let's refresh my work over here. Okay, so here's my ZTC demo Atlanta, and then here's my ZTC demo clone 2. Identical. There's the objects in there. There's my flights. There's my objects, and the data is identical. And I did not copy a single data point. Now, if I were to update the clone 2, it would start parsing that data out, separating it from the original database. All right, so we've got that. I'm going to hop over to Tableau. Just spoiled you guys what I was going to show you last, but oh well. Okay. So I'm going to connect to Snowflake. I'm going to use the native connector here. Put in your account, credentials. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my password. Anybody guess the movie reference? Shout out to you, Mark. My sister's here, and we grew up on that movie. Spaceballs.
It's kind of thing an idiot has on his luggage.
That's right. Before memes, we talked in movie quotes, and that was my family. So, all right, let's go to that demo small warehouse. We're going to use that one. I'm going to go down to my ZTC demo Atlanta database. And then flights. And I'm just going to grab my view I created. Not too bad for cell phone Wi-Fi. All right, we're going to hop over here because I don't want to keep too much more of your time. Let's just see how many records we have. Live connection. 148 million. So there we go. And I might want to look at this over time. So let's grab our flight date. So there we go. By year, number of flights. There's 2001. There's our dip from September 11th, and then it restores back in 2003. You can see the 2016, we don't have a full year. That's why there's a drop here. We only have to halfway through the year. All right, database people, should you ever do something like this? 9,000 marks, that's every single day. Anyone want to take a guess what the low point is each year? Least amount of flights, the lowest flight day of the year.
January 1st. Christmas?
Valentine's Day.
Still not the right answer yet. January 1st, Valentine's Day, Christmas, all wrong. Thanksgiving. November. Thanksgiving Day is the lowest. What I find interesting in this data set is it's relatively stable. You have a little bump in 2001, and then you got the September 11th crash, and then you get back up. After that, we see a little bit of the summer bumps, the vacations. These little rounded humps are summertime. Seasonal there. Maybe I want to look at airline name. And again, these aren't going to be awesome visuals, but I'm showing you some things that can be badly done by users, but it's still Snowflake. I'm running a small. I'm not running an XL. I'm not running a 4XL. I'm running a small. So Southwest is the #1 in flights. There's a number of flights. Interesting thing here, we've got something like Northwest going on, and why does that cut off? Well, Delta bought them. That is very good. So you can see exactly when the merger happens. Maybe we want to see What's the #1 airport? Any guesses? There it is, ATL. We are the world's busiest airport. And O'Hare is not far behind, followed by DFW and LAX. And then what I like to do is I like to show you how big of a hub Delta is in Atlanta. We have the biggest hub in Atlanta for a given airline. I joke with my friends at InterWorks who aren't from the South or aren't from Atlanta, that we have 3 things we cannot choose when we live in Atlanta. We cannot choose our soft drink, we cannot choose our airline, and we can't choose our restaurant. We all have to eat Chick-fil-A, drink Coca-Cola, and fly Delta Airlines. Look at Delta, look at that bar, Delta Airlines, right there. So no other airline has that big of a hub. I mean, United's got a big one in O'Hare, but and American has a pretty big one at DFW, but Delta in Atlanta is by far #1. So this allows us to do some really cool things. Remember those flight maps that you see in magazines? This is an actual snapshot from the Delta website from 2015 of their flight map. Because of 2019.2 and make point, make line, I was able to use Snowflake and connect to it and make point, make line, and almost recreate the Delta flight map. So that's what we're looking at right here, is all the flights for Delta. So those are some of the powerful things Tableau and Snowflake together can do for us. So what we just do today with this, we spun up a whole data warehouse with 150 million records and loaded it. And I showed you the power to scale up. Didn't show you to scale wide yet. I want to show you the history here too. I can look at every query that was run in our whole instance here. So this is actually filtering on just my user. So you can't see anything other InterWorks users are doing. This is from Tableau here. I can see that airline name. I can see what SQL has been run, how long it took to run. It scanned 480 megabytes there. This query here, the one that did every airline by day, ran in 5.4 seconds, 650 megabytes, returned 126,000 rows. And I can look through and scan all of this and see more detail on it. If I own, if I'm the one that ran the query, I can actually see the actual data loading behind all of it, and it's gonna, but if I'm not the one who ran the query, I can't see the data down here, but I can actually profile, and I can see how Snowflake profiled it too. All this is done automatically for me. So the powerful thing here, just like Tableau, we can start small with 1 creator license. And if you want to share on the web, we can get 5 Explorer licenses, and I'm online. With Snowflake, I can start really small. So if you're a small mom and pop, if you're a company that doesn't have the enterprise resources, I can have a data warehouse that performs really fast at scale, even at a small premise. But can also scale out to very large clients like Capital One. So
I'm missing something here. So I have my data, that's my New Jersey.
That's fine.
And so you're not charging me for holding my data? And then
There's a small fee for storage, but all Snowflake is doing is passing that data cost onto you for storage. They're not making any money on it. Yeah. Yeah. And any Snowflake folks in here, I know Sam and Trevor in here, actually think Sam had to step out, but let me know if I misspeak or you want to chime in. Feel free.
I think the key on that is it's also compressed. So if you have a terabyte of data that you're putting up there, we're actually going to get compression 4 to 6x possibly on that, and then you're only paying for that compressed cost, and it's $23 a month for a terabyte. So yeah, it's a magnitude cheaper than most other options.
The other thing I want to show you is JSON. So we put in some weather data here into our instance. This is a JSON file. So anybody's familiar with JSON data, you recognize what this looks like, right? And what this table has, it just has 1 column, and we call this column B. And it's a type of variant. Well, what we can do, this is where the data lake and this concept can come in very easily. I just dump this JSON file into a table with 1 column, and I'm good to go. Because now I can shred this JSON using this nomenclature here in this syntax. I'm actually just going to query that same table, weather public, JSON weather data. I'm actually querying on 1 city. And then I've got to convert my temperature from Kelvin temperatures we understand here as normal human beings. So just like that, I've shredded 28,000 rows of JSON data, just like that. So that's the other powerful thing too, is I can have that semi-structured and structured data all in once, and that data lake architecture I showed you can be used here as well. I showed you the zero copy clone. Let's get back to the deck then. So the advantages here, data sharing. I can actually share data with other users. So semi-structured data, we talked about that, JSON. Scalability, multiple workloads, front end, back end, standard ANSI SQL, auto-scaling compute where I can stretch going out and going up. One architecture, so whether I'm in AWS or Azure, I'm good there. And then it's a pay-as-you-go service, so I don't have to invest in a major team. I don't have to invest in a major infrastructure to get this going. I literally am a few clicks away from getting this spun up. So imagine I'm Mothership, and I'm a company that's got a lot of other companies. So the zero copy cloning, that's your teal color here. Maybe I want to just clone a schema, but I don't want the data to actually go to that other company, or I want to parse it out and keep it isolated. I got subsidiary AMD or maybe different divisions. I can copy that schema, then I can just load that company's data in. Maybe data sharing. Maybe I've got business partners. How many of you have managed databases and you're like, you get another request from the marketing group to send data off to another partner? You can actually share the data and they have access to your data, just what you share with them, with secure views and things like that. Partners, vendors, franchisees, if you're a restaurant, channels, things like that. You're only sharing, you're only going to see what you're allowing them to see. And in that case, if they have their own Snowflake account, they pay for compute, you're not paying for their compute. You can share with someone who doesn't have Snowflake, and then the compute is on you, but then you can always charge that partner for the compute that they use, because you can set up a new account and actually track exactly how much they're hitting your account for. So workload management, this is something that Mark touched on as well, where he was talking about Exasol really shining at the continuous workload. And so Snowflake, imagine this is your data demand, these bars. This is a very rudimentary graphic that I created here. So I get a lull here between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. where I'm not really pulling data or not needing to work on data. The curve is what Snowflake will give you. It gives you that ebb and flow that I need. Whereas if I had to, normally in cloud computing solutions, I'm paying for a specific workload amount, whether it's Redshift or Azure SQL, and all this pink behind here is wasted resource spend. Because I'm having to pay for my maximum potential level, when in reality I don't really need all of this. I can ebb and flow with what I need. So instant scalability, where I can spin up automatic warehouses, 1 through n, not n like infinite, but there's a limit to that. But from a dashboarding perspective, I can really have enough nodes to take care of all my users. And then infinite expandability up and down. If I got a heavy workload data science, for example, that restaurant schema, in fact, I'm sure anybody wants to see afterwards, we had 2 billion rows of data that we created in Snowflake in 23 seconds. And we used an Excel warehouse to do that, but 2 billion rows were created automatically in 23 seconds. So it allowed us to really scale up there. The downsides, a few downsides that we could think of. You don't own the metadata, so because it is cloud, you don't own it, Snowflake owns it, so you got to rely on their support for any emergency. Cloud-only solution, if cloud goes down, AWS goes down, Azure goes down, you're down, but there's more than just your Snowflake instance down when that happens, so it's, I'd say that's probably a lower risk. User-defined functions. So one thing that impressed me at boot camp with Snowflake was they're constantly doing code updates. I think it's every Friday. Is that still the case? Just about every week they're updating code. Right now there's no only interpreted languages. I think is JavaScript and SQL that are allowed in functions right now. So like if you want to use Python, there's a Python connector for Snowflake, but you can't write Python natively in Snowflake yet. So I'm sure that's on their roadmap. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just some of the disadvantages right now. Hamilton College was an account that InterWorks got involved with, and we actually were able to take their S3, Amazon S3, and use Matillion to load the data into Snowflake, and then add it on Tableau server. really transformed their data architecture. And it's this simple. We're bringing in files from a colleague, and it was JSON files. We stored in their S3 bucket, loaded through Mixlate, and flattened those views just like we showed before, and then had the database accessed by Tableau server, and then they had their visualizations and dashboards on top of that. This really saved them a lot of time and helped them see some of their data in a way they'd never seen before. So what we do today, we spun up a scalable data warehouse. We showed you how Tableau accesses it. We also scaled Snowflake up. A small warehouse, remember, took about 2.5 minutes. The large warehouse took about 40 seconds. And then I showed you how to clone. I didn't show you the data sharing per se yet. But so there's our office hours. If you want to continue the dialogue, or if you have something we help with, there's our office hours. I will put that back up. Here's my contact information. I'd love to connect with anybody I haven't connected with yet on LinkedIn or whatever. So with that, I will conclude. Thanks for sharing.
Any questions for Karl?
So if you go into the Snowflake, you went ELT, is there, is it the scope of that, tell me benefits going that way? Or?
So the benefits there, so the question is you went ELT instead of ETL. The benefits there is the data gets in your environment faster.
Does everybody understand those acronyms real quick?
ELT, so ETL, ELT. One of my very first jobs at Chick-fil-A was doing ETL. So it's extracting data from a system, whether it's source system, POS system, you name it. It's taking data from one place, extract, transforming the data in process. So maybe I've got POS data and I need to reshape it to get it into Oracle. So that's the transform part, and then loading it into that target system. Because technology in the past, you didn't want to put too much work on your database. You would have a separate system in the middle that would do the transformation. So like right here, actually let's go back to that slide. Right here, you would actually do all your heavy lifting of transforming work. But now, you can actually just load the data into Snowflake as it is, that JSON data. Normally in the past, you would take files like those JSON files and transform them before you put them into a data warehouse. Add your keys, add everything else that you need. Here we just dump it in there and then we can transform it in there. We can create another database. We can create another schema and do the work that way. So that's the distinct change. Extract, transform, load versus extract, load, and then transform all of them in there. Because I can have a warehouse that scales up and runs more compute and does that workload faster. Or I can put all the logic in the database, right? The nice thing, the other thing about Snowflake too, because it is all cloud, I don't need to worry about a dev, QA, prod environment. I do that, I manage that with different databases and different schemas inside of my databases. And I can copy. So imagine when you guys do testing. I've done a QA or got my dev done, I need to spin up a QA. I can shut my QA instance down and just do a zero copy clone to QA, start testing that, and then I can deploy that in production if I want from there. It's a more streamlined development process as well. Good question. Any other questions? Yes?
Does it have any ability to push data into another system, like Salesforce or what you got?
I mean, it's a database like anything else. I mean, you can put data in, you can take data out. It's ideally used for analytics and an analytic database. It's not. I mean, you're going to get fast performance querying, pulling data out. You just got to write a job to do it. So I know of one client that is taking data from Snowflake as their partner that they're dealing with. Wants the data in a certain format, so they just have a job that runs, fires it off, sends the file off. Yes?
How does Snowflake manage data security?
How do they manage data security? Excellent question. I'm going to have to lean on our Snowflake folks for a more technical answer there. That's the part I mean, I know some about the security model, but if you want to comment on that, Trevor?
What kind of security are you talking about?
Well, like if you have, say, sensitive data like HIPAA-protected data or perfect-protected data, what controls does Snowflake implement to keep someone from, say, hacking into data? Well, of course, can't prevent hackers doing it completely, but to try to minimize someone being able to get in and access the data who doesn't have authorization.
Yeah, there's a long list of things we actually do. Controls are numerous. The key things, though, that you have to worry about are, as we go back to what you said earlier about the different editions of Snowflake that you can sign up for. So if you have that concern and you need that level of security for HIPAA data, let's say, the level of edition that you get encrypts the data from all in transit within internodal communication within the Snowflake itself and all the way to disk, so it's never unencrypted. So that's the first thing. So even if somebody could get in there, they couldn't make any sense of the data. You can't unencrypt it. It's very, the encryption is, top. I mean, it's FedRAMP, so all the intelligence agencies can use it. And so it's that level of encryption. Plus, you can actually bring your own key and join it with our key, which is a triple, whatever, secure. And when you do that, then anytime you want to take away your key, so the data can never be unencrypted without both sides of the key. So somebody would have to have both keys to unencrypt that data at all. But then we have, just as part of our global services layer, which is what he was talking about, everybody that accesses Snowflake has to go through that. So you have to have the authority to go in, you have to have a username, password, and you can also set up multi-factor authentication, which is recommended. So then you need another device or something that would allow you to recognize it's you. So there's many levels of security within Snowflake. And it was built, the first employee they ever hired outside the founders was the security expert who came in. So everything's been built from the ground up, security first. So yeah, tons of other detail behind that, but happy to go into that if you want to talk about it.
You can whitelist and blacklist IPs as
Yes,
well.
exactly. Yep, whitelist.
Thank you. Any other questions? Happy to draw good questions. All right, appreciate y'all's time today.
Awesome, thank you.